This episode is sponsored by Adobe. Discover what's next in marketing, creativity, and AI at Adobe Summit, returning to Las Vegas April 20th through the 22nd. Explore the latest agentic AI innovations, connect with global leaders, and choose from more than 200 expert-led sessions and hands-on labs. You can even become an Adobe certified professional with free on-site exams. Use code ADAGE for $200 off your full conference pass at adobe.com/go/adage.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Senior Editor of CMO Strategy and Commerce at AdAge, and welcome to another edition of the Marketer's Brief Podcast, our weekly discussion about marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. Amid changing consumer behavior around gyms and the rise in use of GLP-1 weight loss medication, many fitness chains are taking a fresh look at their marketing. Crunch Fitness recently debuted a new marketing campaign as it looks to position itself as a fun destination for health goals at a time when customers are beginning to treat gyms as social hubs. Today, we'll be talking with Chad Waetzig, Chief Marketing Officer of Crunch Fitness. He'll talk about the brand's new campaign, how it's addressing changing consumer behavior, and what's ahead this year. Now, here's my conversation with Chad. Hi, Chad. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, how long have you been at Crunch?
So I've been with Crunch for 9 years. I'm going on year 10. And when I joined the company, we had about 125 gyms. And, today we're cresting about 550. So I've been part of a tremendous growth period, and it's been fun.
Yeah, it's a growth period as well as just an interesting period of consumer behavior changes, which I want to get into a little bit later.
Sure.
And it's a busy time of year for your industry, or at least it used to be traditionally busy at the beginning of the year. Is that still the case? Are you still seeing, even now in March, this New Year's resolution, that boost of interest from customers?
Yeah, that behavior really hasn't changed since I've been part of the business. There's still this philosophy, new year, new you. People do set resolutions. They do see it as a time for change, for a fresh start. And so Crunch, like much of the industry, we see some of our busiest time of the year in that first quarter, and that's continued this year as well.
And this is your biggest marketing push too, in terms of work and investment?
It is. It is. The biggest spend happens in Q1 for us. We launch our new campaign really on the 26th of December, which is kind of the start of the new year for us. And we really continue it through Q1.
Let's talk about that new campaign. I know it's called Feel More, and that's part of the Feel Good Not Bad platform. Can you talk a little bit about this push and how it fits in with that wider puzzle?
Yeah. Let me take a step back and talk a little bit about the Feel Good Not Bad campaign. So coming out of the pandemic, which really obviously hit all of us very hard personally, and obviously had a significant impact on the fitness business. The first 2 years coming out of the pandemic was really about getting folks just back into the gym and feeling comfortable and safe working out in a gym environment. And one of the things that we saw through our consumer research is that our members, who we call young, strong, and social, 18 to 39 adults, they were really feeling the weight of the world. And it was a combination of post-pandemic loneliness, the kind of toxic politics that we're all facing today, the impact on the economy kind of coming out of the pandemic with inflation and higher interest rates and all the things that were tied into that kind of post-pandemic social impact. And they were really feeling like they were feeling the weight of the world. And one of the things that got them past that was exercise. And in fact, we found that 9 of 10 consumers believe that fitness does more to help your mental health than it does your physical health. And so one of the things that Crunch has always done for 37 years is really been about making fitness fun. And we thought more than ever before, Crunch is the place that makes you feel good in a time and a place where you're not feeling good and you're feeling bad. So while the campaign is very simplistic, feel good, not bad, the underlying insights are actually quite complex. And that campaign has done very well for us. And so year 1 was about feel good, not bad. Year 2 was about feel good here. And it was really about Crunch as the place to feel good. And then as we looked at this year, one of the things that we're seeing is that I don't only want to feel good, I need to feel more. And how can fitness and how can crunch in particular play that role? And so the campaign has evolved into feel more. And we're seeing some really great kind of initial results 2.5 months into it.
It feels like there's this nostalgic element too with the song choice. Was that intentional, tapping into the theme of nostalgia, which seems to still seem so popular right now?
Yeah, it's true. And obviously kind of the current nostalgia is all about 2016, but it really expands beyond that and dives back into the 90s and the 2000s. And what we saw in our consumer research is not only was exercise an important escape for consumers, but that nostalgia provides an escape from a real serious reality. And especially for 18 to 39-year-olds who are digital first, the 90s in particular is kind of a pre-digital age. I mean, certainly there was the internet and email and a very kind of nascent social media, right? I think MySpace would have been about the biggest thing happening at the time. But I think to some of these younger adults who were either not alive or very, very young children, it seemed like a very simple time. And so the nostalgia for the 90s was important. And we thought, who better than the kind of OG gym of the 90s to kind of dip into that nostalgia and really highlight who we've been and who we've always tried to be. And so, this is how we do it. It's very much an anthem of the mid 90s. And that attitude and that philosophy kind of plays into what Crunch has always been about. So for us, it felt like a really natural fit.
Yeah, you guys are like, we own the 90s.
We
We got the
do,
90s.
we do, we do.
And the campaign also taps into this idea of gyms as social hubs at a time, as you said, when people are spending more time online in the digital world, and there's this concept of needing to touch grass and connect in real life. How is that an important trend that Crunch is exploring and tapping into beyond this campaign, just in general?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things that makes us unique, different, and special is our community. And that starts first with our franchise partners and the teams that they have at the club level. And our members bring that community and that culture to the gym as well. One of the things that the Young, Strong, and Social continue to tell us is that they're looking for spaces that have a vibe. And what does vibe mean? And in our case, it really is the energy and the motivation that you can get by being around others. Whether you're working out alone or you're working out with your bestie or your partner, being with others just creates that energy. And our teams support that energy. And we think that you're going to get a better workout and a better experience when you do it with others, even if you're by yourself. And we think that plays out really well in the campaign. And we think it plays out really well in real life when you're in the gym.
Now, I know you said your target is that 18 to 39, but would you say this kind of need for real life connections, this type of consumer behavior is differing by generations? Are people like older people just kind of using the gym to work out and leave? Is this really just a Gen Z and, younger millennials trend?
I would say that, in terms of the research that we do focus primarily on that 18 to 39. They make up two-thirds of our member base, roughly. So they're the biggest drivers of our member base. But, I think you are seeing adult male loneliness of all ages be an issue. The need for connection and social outlets transcends age. And so, as we look just across our entire member base, you can see these groups of older, and I'll put myself in that category, of older gym goers, really embracing this idea that the gym can be another place for connection and another place to build those relationships. So, we do think that that's probably more of a universal truth about Crunch and about the workout experience. But the majority of our research really has been focused on our core target.
And what kind of feedback are you hearing from your customers about the recent campaign? You mentioned that you were seeing some success in early metrics.
Yeah. So, from a business performance standpoint, sales are up about 26% year over year. And so we're seeing, really strong performance there. We tested the campaign in quantitative testing and it scored very well for us. scored high on music, scored high on nostalgia, scored high on likability. And what we're also seeing is that our members are playing back the music and the campaign to our team members in the club. Hey, I saw that ad. I love that song. Oh my God, it takes me back, right? We're hearing that kind of anecdotally play out, and we're getting that feedback from our franchise partners as well.
Let's take a quick break for this message from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by Adobe. Discover what's next in marketing, creativity, and AI at Adobe Summit, returning to Las Vegas April 20th through the 22nd. Explore the latest agentic AI innovations, connect with global leaders, and choose from more than 200 expert-led sessions and hands-on labs. You can even become an Adobe certified professional with free on-site exams. Use code ADAGE for $200 off your full conference pass at adobe.com/go/adage.
Welcome back. Now, you worked with the agency Familiar Creatures, which has been Crunch's longtime AOR. And at a time when many brands are moving to a project basis or kind of really diversifying their roster, having this kind of relationship feels like a bit of an anomaly. Can you talk about the rationale behind maintaining an AOR and if any creative work is also done in-house, kind of how you're exploring those two?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We really like our partnership with Familiar Creatures. Here's what I would say. Crunch, while we have 550 locations, we're well over $1 billion business. We're still a small brand relative to the category. We consider ourselves the number one challenger brand in fitness, just relative to brands in general. And we also think we have a really unique brand and a unique point of view. And so for us, having a partner who really understands Crunch, the brand DNA, our franchisees, our agency has spent a lot of time talking and interviewing and spending time with our franchise partners to get to understand what drives them and what motivates them. We think that value that long-term relationships provides is almost priceless. And so they know the brand as well as we do and as anybody else does. And I think when you go to project work, while sometimes you can get some really creative things, for us, consistency is important, and that we want to make sure that we're bringing our DNA to life. And Familiar Creatures has done a really nice job with that. So Luis Vega's our head of creative here at Crunch. And so the way we work together between the in-house team and the Familiar Creatures team is the Familiar Creatures team really focuses on the big ad idea and the overarching campaign for the year. And then Luis and his team will adapt that for all of the performance marketing and the really production side of the marketing to bring that campaign to life. So while Familiar Creatures focuses primarily on the concept and the TV and the related video that goes with that, the social video and YouTube video, Luis and his team will translate that into social, direct mail, in-club assets, et cetera. And so the two of those groups work really well together, kind of hand in glove.
You mentioned direct mail, and it's funny because I was going to ask you about what channels you're finding is really resonates with that target 18 to 39. You wouldn't think direct mail, and yet that's what you have. So talk about some of the channel mix and what you're finding is really working.
Yeah, direct mail still works, especially in this category. It is something tangible. So, when you think about nostalgia in the broadest sense, you've got a return to vinyl LPs. And now cassette tapes, I think, are making a comeback, which is crazy. So physical media is important. And I think sometimes people like to have something that they can hold in their hand, that they can look at. Maybe they take that direct mail piece and they throw it in their car. So when they're out and they drive by the Crunch, they remember to go in. And so it still works for us. But, to be clear, the biggest part of our mix is still digital. At the brand level, we spend about 80% of the brand's media budget at kind of top of funnel, and it's all digital, right? Whether it's programmatic cable, whether it's connected television, YouTube, TikTok, really about awareness building top of the funnel. And then the bottom 20% we're spending is really on paid search. Our franchise partners really pick up the rest of that kind of mid funnel to lower funnel. And I would say 70% of what they spend is on mostly paid social, and there's a little bit of display. And then the other 20 to 30% is going to be spent on things like direct mail or grassroots marketing or partnerships, things of that nature. So We do have a full funnel mix, but there's still some old school things that are still driving the business every day.
So switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about the GLP-1 trend,
Yeah.
especially coming off a Super Bowl where we saw several healthcare brands advertising weight loss medication. How is Crunch approaching the rise in use of GLP-1 medication? Do you have certain program offerings or trainings to assist people on these medicines? And are you doing any marketing to support that? How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, we actually do. So we want to meet our members where they are. And GLP-1s have done a lot to help the obesity crisis that we're facing as a country. And the penetration is still relatively low, right, in terms of GLP-1 use. But the important thing about getting on a GLP-1 regimen is that you have to have the fitness that goes with it. If you don't, what you end up having is a lot of muscle wastage. The term skinny fat has often been used, right? You lose weight, but you're still kind of flabby. And so we have a really strong personal training discipline and function at Crunch. And we definitely customize programs for our members that are on GLP-1s to build their strength, but also to make sure they have the right supplements. So again, when you're on a GLP-1, you want to take more protein. Creatine is going to be important. And so we do have programs where they can get with trainers, get a personalized workout program, get a personalized supplementation program that helps them along that GLP-1 journey. So that's kind of step one. And we certainly message that and have outreach for that. The other is that we do have a partnership with a GLP-1 provider. So there's a company called Thrive that offers compounded GLP-1s. They also do hormone replacement therapies and longevity programs. And while we are not providing that service in the gym, we do have a brand partnership with Thrive. And so if our members are interested in exploring GLP-1s, they can do telehealth with Thrive and they can see if it's right for them. And then if it is, we're there to support them with the personal training as well.
Switching gears again,
Yeah, sure.
as you think about your work and, trying to be as creative as possible, are there any other brands out there that are doing a good job with marketing that you admire? Like, who are you paying attention to?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I'm gonna have to give that a little bit of thought. I think I'll give you an example of where I think a brand really pivoted well, and I think you've written about it, or certainly the publication has. It's what Dr. Pepper did by leaning into that fantastic jingle that a fan wrote, right? So, great creative doesn't have to come from only from agencies. It can come from your fans and your evangelists. And I think what Dr. Pepper did to lean into that and to support that and to elevate that was really impressive. And it reminds me of a little bit of around what Crunch used to do years before I got here. Crunch ran a whole campaign around give us your best ad, and then we'll run that ad. And so you do have every brand has fans. And so being able to leverage those fans and, it's historically been done, over the last 5, 7 years with influencers, this really took it to the next level. And so my hat's off to the Dr. Pepper team for leaning into that.
You mentioned that, and now, of course, that song is in my
Of
in
course
my
it
head.
is, right?
My kids sing it all the time. They were so upset that it wasn't in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I know. But again, sometimes you just catch lightning, and when you do, you got to run with it.
And what else is ahead for Crunch this year as we're almost out of time? So,
Yeah.
will you guys have new work this summer? What are you focusing on? What can we expect?
So, again, we're scrappy. We're a challenger brand, and so we're going to take the Feel More campaign and we're going to run with it for the whole year as best we can. For us, it's really about a little bit more of the blocking and tackling. So for us, it's really about leveraging our CDP to get the right message to the right consumer at the right time and really leveraging that platform and all the things that it can do for us. So it's not as sexy as a new campaign, but kind of that nuts and bolts of leveraging the CDP. And then the next kind of frontier for us is answer engine optimization. So search is an important part of every business. And I think every business is seeing the impact of AI tools and what that's doing to kind of soften the impact of search. And so we're putting kind of a full court press behind all the things that we can do with our content, with our influencers, with third-party endorsements to make sure that, when you're searching for fitness in ChatGPT or Claude or any of those platforms, that crunch is going to be part of that conversation, and we're going to be in that answer to that question that the consumer is asking. And that's a very different approach than kind of the old school way of thinking about SEO and paid search and all of that. And so for us, it's a major pivot, and it's a real big focus for us in the back half of the year.
We should talk more about that then when you guys are ready to discuss. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, we'd love to. We'd love to.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It was great to speak.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
That was Chad Waetzig, Chief Marketing Officer of Crunch, and I'm Adrian Pasquarelli, Senior Editor at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and invite you to subscribe to the Marketer's Brief podcast on your favorite player. We promise to keep it brief or at least short enough for your morning coffee. Thanks for tuning in.